We've got loads of questions that have come in, so I'm keen to get some of those to you. So we had some that came in advance of today's. So let's have a look here. Um, One of the questions that's come in is a question around who the most impactful stakeholders are to engage with patients. Should it be the advocacy groups, CROs, the sponsor, other? Either of you got an opinion? If you're talking about going out and reaching out to patients in terms of co-design, who should make that outreach?
I think sponsors are the number one. They're the ones that have the original idea. They're the ones that are out there looking for assets to develop. Um, when you see something coming out of a university setting or a translational setting, think about did they vet this with patients? Is this something that's even going to be worthwhile to pursue? So I think the initial responsibility for patient engagement is with the sponsor.
Yeah. And would that be, Mindy, through their internal patient engagement team, or would that come from another function, do you think?
Well, I would love to see it come from the patient engagement team because what I find a lot of times in rare is, and companies are working with very limited resources to be fair, but they'll bring in patient advocacy way too late in their development cycle, way too late. So, in our in my disease group, there's many opportunities to engage with patients. We have many conferences. We have many events where patients are going to be. We have advocacy groups that organize regional events. We're on the ball on that. That's not always going to be the case. So you need to figure out where patients are talking to each other and where they're discussing their symptoms and things that are the most burdensome about life with these diseases, and then start tailoring your programs around that. So it's going to depend on your disease area and what exists. Um, but if a patient advocacy group exists, that's an excellent place to start.
Yeah. There's a question here that I think is really interesting. So, should the patient voice stop after the candidate therapy is approved, or should patient voice remain included even during commercialization?
You're
I,
asking a Duchenne patient that? Yes, you need to do that.
yeah.
We are on the cutting edge in this field. We have a lot of potentially transformative therapy. I mean, some of these therapies are changing disease course. We have some therapies in neuromuscular disease that are looking like huge successes. I'm not going to say miracles. We don't know, but it's that long-term follow-up. These are therapies that go in and fix a genetic problem. So we have to stay engaged post commercialization. We're on at a new frontier here. If we don't follow up on these therapies, well, first of all, payers will stop paying for them. And if we can't prove that something's working in this environment, you're not going to get coverage for it. And there's nothing worse than a therapy that exists that you can't get access to. That's worse than not having a therapy.
Yeah.
So it is crucial to stay engaged post commercialization.
Mhm.
Plus, you've got
And
long-term side effects too that need to be monitored. These are new therapies. We are so grateful that new therapies are here, but we don't know what they look like 10, 15 years out, and they've got to be monitored
Mhm.
post-commercially.
Yeah.
what I was going to add is like I certainly have seen that uh, follow up long after. We've had some studies where people are monthly going on for 8 years past, from early on. So they're continuing it on and on every month, getting
Mm.
feedback, learning what's going on. And so we are seeing that, but it's so important. Yeah. When we say early, it doesn't mean early and stop, right? That's the starting point. And there's so many reasons that you need to be continuing.
Mm.
Plus,
And
I mean, it's the commercial enterprise. It's if you stay engaged with patients, you're going to get more customers, and at the end of the day, you are looking for customers and we are the customers. So you need to see how real world experience is going for people who are on your therapy. Oh, sorry. I was hoping I'd get through this without my dog barking, but there you go.
oh. So there's a question here, and again, Mindy, you spoke to this a little bit before, but Around budgeting. So what sort of budget would we need to ensure
Yeah.
co-creation is properly within my trial design? You know, we're making sure that we've got budget there in there as a line item. Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Well, again, at the risk of being self-serving, if people want to reach patients that we have in the US and UK and in Europe, we post pricing on our website. You can see what it costs to do a 1 hour Zoom call or a survey. We're very open about it. And all I can say is it's a small piece of anybody's budget. Nobody's going to go broke.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think one thing too, I mean, I run focus groups and advisory boards for companies all the time, and it doesn't have to be big, glitzy, fancy graphic report with, we need reports. You definitely need reports, but these don't have to be something that you're going to spend $50,000 to do. You can hire a company to do a basic listening session. I think as far as a budget item, patients deserve to be paid. So, there are lots of different tools you can use to come upon the acceptable rate. But I think this is a very inexpensive piece of drug development compared to other expenses.
And compared to getting it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So we've got a question here. We haven't really talked around the role of nurses. We've talked a bit about physicians and then patients, but we've got a question here. It says, how do we incorporate the sort of nurses who are living the day-to-day, perhaps more than the physician, as well as the nurses and caregivers, making sure that their voices can be leveraged? Is that something that I know, Wes, the caregiver reports that you do are also really, that's something you're really active in, but
we haven't done nurses, but I agree that they are a wonderful source because they are kind of in between that. A lot of times they have much more knowledge of what the patient's going through than the physician. Yet that they have knowledge of the medical side as well. So I think it is so important to include them. It's not something we do, but I think it's well taken to keep them involved.
Yeah, I think that's true. And in rare, with our clinical trials, especially when kids are involved, we'll become very close to our nurses and our physical therapists, even a social worker that might be involved in a clinic situation, who really are going to know more about what that patient's life is like at home, what kind of access to coverage they have, what kinds of state-provided supports may be available to them that they don't know about or have trouble accessing the application and navigating the application. These kinds of services are really hard to get. So that's a critically important piece. The nurses and the other auxiliary staff in a clinic are really the ones that are going to know the patients more. It's very traumatic for a patient to come in and have a new clinical trial investigator. Somebody's left and now they have to get used to a new person. Kids in these trials are expected to do a lot of things that they don't want to do, and there's a lot of tears and there's a lot of emotion. Parents are scared out of their minds. They're not used to this environment, and they need a lot of support, and they're going to get that from the non-doctor staff.
Mm-hmm.
Not that doctors don't do it, but the nurses are who we spend a lot of time with.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess we'll finish up with a question. What's been the most eye-opening thing you've learned from working with patients so far? So you both want to have a go at that.
That we want you to succeed. We are your biggest cheerleaders. Whether you're a sponsor, a CRO, we appreciate that you are working in our field. We understand the challenges. We first and foremost want to help. That is our main priority. We want to help you be successful. It's heartbreaking when a trial fails and there's 100 or 200 young families involved and they suddenly find out. And the way we find out about termination of trials is often not ideal. It has to be that way for a variety of reasons, but we've gotten better about that, about making sure that patients are notified in a timely manner before they read it on social media, but oftentimes just the way the investment environment works, that's the way companies have to, you know, put the news out that a trial has ended. But we are your partners. There's not, you won't have a more motivated partner than the patient community in your drug development. No one.
And do you think that's a big misconception for sponsors? Do you think they don't really appreciate that sentiment?
It's frustrating for patients, I think, when a lot of investor noise starts happening. That's hard to take. Most patients don't realize that without that investment, there would be no drug development. And without our incentives for rare disease drug development, there will be no drug development. So it is important to pay attention to the politics and the investment side. But, you know, that's hard for patients to marry sometimes. That this product didn't go forward because of an investment situation and not an efficacy situation. That's very difficult.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's something that perhaps even within the co-design area environment, planning for communications and, you know, not just what happens when it goes right, but what happens when it goes wrong, and how you will inform both your participants and your collaborators, and in what order, is something that companies can sort of, you know, really discuss up front, so that there is that, you know, they know the pathway, that if things go wrong, this is how it will be delivered. Wes, what about you?
And did I mention that we want our data back if something goes wrong? Did I mention that? Okay.
Wes, what about for you? What's kind of one of the biggest insights or surprises
that patients want to do this? We asked the question, would you be interested in being involved in design? 82% said, yes, I'm interested. I go to the patient events, the fundraisers, the conferences, the walks and stuff, and I'm always amazed that like every condition is worse than the one before. And I'm seeing these people there because they're determined. How can they help? If it doesn't help them, maybe it'll help those coming after. And then I'm remembering, I'm not seeing them on the day of the diagnosis. I'm sure that wasn't a great time, but people have taken the punches, if you will, and then have come to see what they can do, and they want to do this. So that's not the barrier. The barrier isn't in the interest. People want to do it to help either their own selves, their loved ones, but especially those down the road. And it's great to see that outpouring of participation.
Yeah. Great. Oh, well, thank you both for what has been incredible insights. And I do hope the audience has taken a lot away from the conversation today. You know, right from start early, pragmatic design, data return, really important. And, you know, we want to be involved in co-design. We want to be involved in clinical trials. So it's great to have had your insights. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank both of our panelists today, to Wes and to Mindy, and also to Rare Patient Voice for helping us to bring today's conversation to you all. Thank you all for joining us and bringing us your insightful questions. There were loads of questions today, so thanks so much for those. We hope you found this informative, that you've got some great takeaways to take away in your own professional or personal journey in Rare. This webinar will be available on demand from the resources page of our website in the coming weeks, so please do share those with your networks. The networks that couldn't make it live today, please feel free to reach out to us. There will be a screen shortly that will have contacts on there, so reach out to any of the team directly if you'd like to find out more information about the work of Rare Patient Voice or Mindy and her work. So thank you all very much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.